All right, let's do a call to order. And for April 22nd, 2025. Let's get started with a roll call.
Rosanna present.
Marilyn, present.
Daryl, present.
Patrick's present.
Marty Hatfield's present.
All righty. Next, let's go ahead and look at the agenda approval for the meeting agenda. Please take a minute.
Harold did an excellent job on these minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I didn't know anybody read them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But we are on the, first to start the meeting agenda, though. Can I get a?
I have a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Sounds good. Thank you. Now we will take a look at the minutes. Please take a couple minutes at the minutes, pun intended. All right.
I'd like to make a comment. There's something in the minutes, there was a reference to, continual reference to PSAs. And I think what was meant there was underwriter acknowledgement, because PSAs are public service announcements.
What part?
Discussion, it's on page.
Oh, yeah, it's on 5 of 7.
Yeah, exactly, excellent. This is great job.
I see something about
I know we want to do PSAs about talking about,
PSA spots sold.
Yeah.
oh yeah, that should be spot. That should be, yeah.
I mean, now,
Yeah.
we do have, and I brought, copies of our current brochure, we do for, for-profit entities do a paid option for PSAs, but all nonprofits, they're free. So I think what you were speaking of were underwriter spots,
Right.
not PSAs.
Yes, in that part. I knew earlier when we were talking about PSAs for getting the word out as far as maybe doing church services. So we mentioned PSA, that was the only part I mentioned. But yeah, we should change that.
However, that was not what was said in the meeting.
Right.
So I went by what was said in the meeting.
Right, well, I'm saying that, but
Ah.
that is, it's not. You might have accurately recorded what was said, but what was said was
Not
inaccurate.
correct, yeah.
Wasn't what they meant to say.
How do you change that?
The correction of the minutes.
Yeah.
So where am I changing this?
Somebody else make a motion about the minutes, since I wasn't present.
Okay, where it says, would like to look at the last 6 months logs showing how many it says PSA spots, that should be underwriter spots.
What page are you on?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 5 to 7.
And then the second instance where it says business is struggling and can't afford higher PSA, that's underwriting rates.
And Trey, on the previous paragraph to all that, under the new business, down towards the last sentence of that paragraph, it says a PSA can be created during certain times of those that we survey. I don't know, maybe that is.
Yeah, that actually,
paragraph, yeah.
I won't go there.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that is.
That would be
Yeah. Public service announcement.
Can we start at KOSW North Beach Independent Media
Yeah, tell me what you're
Agency?
Yeah.
to-
Okay,
to
so-
correct.
You have two places where it says, all right, in the first sentence, it says PSA spots. That should, you should cross that out and say underwriting acknowledgements.
Okay.
And then in the very next sentence, it says the businesses are struggling in town and can't afford higher PSA rates, it should be higher underwriting rates. Because I know with our volunteers, often they consider underwriting and PSAs to be interchangeable, but actually they are not. So there, Marilyn, somebody did read your minutes.
Will you not read them
Right
again?
over.
Any other comments on the minutes? Does anybody else need more time to read it? So, we'll pretty much been reading it. So with those couple changes, it looks like to the PSA, the underwriting. Can I get a motion to approve the?
Motion to approve the minutes.
You have to say.
Esmond.
Second. Second. Thank you. Public.
Wait, you have to vote.
All in favor?
If you have a motion and then you have a
I
second.
don't do that anymore.
No, I don't think you're supposed to that.
That's one of those, I think you're supposed to,
Yeah, you're supposed
but
to.
I was also guided that it's unnecessary in this meeting. Yeah, I was gonna say council meeting. But
That's why we haven't been doing it.
No, really?
you want to?
Yes.
Might as well. Yeah, let's take the vote.
All those.
All those in favor? All right.
Yeah.
Public communications, 3 minutes. We'll start with folks in the room. Tim, got anything to say? All right. Hey, we got Richard up there, but with public communications, so we'll start with that. We have G.
Probably
Gina, do you have anything to say?
No public comment, just good afternoon, or good morning still, I guess.
And that's Jane. Hey, good morning, Jane. Thank you. All right. Any public communication, anything to say? All righty, sir. There'll be another time at the end of the meeting. Moving on, reports. We'll start with the chair report. And start with myself. So one thing I mentioned, getting on, I talked to the mayor. There was, when I first was get on the board a little over a year ago, I guess it's been. He stuck the new guy in the chairman role. Thank you again. But anyway, I did talk to mayor. I came across and I'm like, how come I can't be on the radio? Because there's always board people on me. I know a lot of people here have already been on the radio before. Even the mayor himself was a board and on the radio. And so, yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, then he told me otherwise. But anyway, he's like, is it in the bylaws? It's not. And so he's like, no, go right ahead. So I'm gonna be hopefully on the radio Saturday mornings talking to Butch. So that's something I think is great. I really think it's a good thing to have board people on the radio because then you get your hands dirty, you know how it works. And it's one thing to be on a board and not be totally, related.
Mix is good.
What's that?
The mix.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I have for that. Really, I don't have anything else. I mean, really, we're gonna talk about the other stuff and when we get to that on the agenda. So, we'll move on. We'll do the station report next with Butch and Trey.
Well, all right, I want to say, I've always been in favor of, being on the board, but I do understand the argument why it's not a good idea, which is that sometimes decisions causes a conflict of interest between the dual roles. That was the argument that had presented to us and why we, other than Rosanna being grandfathered into it, why they weren't doing it. I didn't agree with the decision, but understood it. So just to tell you, that was why for a while there wasn't that. Let's see, for my report, I'm working on my always fun. Notice I'm saying this with air quotes. Quarterly report for Sound Exchange. Actually started on it early this quarter, so I will have it in by the beautiful 15th of May. Got in the quarterly public input report. Actually started on that like about 3 weeks early, so. And then the other thing is that, I've been with the radio station now for 11 and a half years, and we've gone through number of computers. And I guess it's a sign of age. Some of these computers in my brain are running into each other because we bought, or North Beach Independent Media bought for AOSW 2 4-terabyte drives, external drives. And so my idea is that we're gonna take one of those external drives and make it an internal drive. So we could expand our music library, the amount of memory we have for that. So Wednesday night, when Dr. Paul got done, I was ready with implements of taking apart our computer, took us off the air, out, and realized the drive didn't fit. Because I was thinking of the computer prior to this computer where we had a carriage where you could put an external into it and thereby making it an internal. But I guess I had just forgotten that we had moved to a small form factor computer. So not only did this not have the requisite things to plug in to make it an internal drive, it was too big. So I had to put the computer back together and then hope that I got everything, all the programs and stuff lined up so it would work. And thankfully it did. But Butch and I were talking about, well, we got this external drive. This is the whole reason we got this, to expand our capability and blah, blah, blah. So the next obvious thing was to put in the external drive and switch that over to become the new F drive. And in order to do that, you have to tell the computer that the drive that was F is now G. And the new thing you're putting in is F. So of course, there was the great worry is once I got everything plugged in, would it work? And worked without a hiccup, except it didn't work completely because we are now experiencing a very weird issue. I only had it, now Butch had it 2 or 3 times last night.
Several times.
Okay, I only had it on one song. But there's like, almost like a hiccup. Where it's going, Mary had a lamb. It's like skipping the words here and there. I noticed on the song that I did, it was Sammy Hagar doing a cover of Birthday by the Beatles, and this woman's voice really went up screeching high. That's when it seemed to cut out. So there was that, but at the time I did it, I got us back on the air within, I think, about 4.5 minutes. I was thinking, great, this worked a lot better than I was thinking it would, until it got time for me to load the weather. And how I do that is I take a thumb drive from my Linux computer and put it on the Windows computer behind me, and then I put it on the F drive. It would not allow me to add anything to the F drive. And so I called one of our IT people, Randall, and he went in with remote utilities, and we worked on it for an hour and a half, and nothing we did. We kept trying to change permissions on various things, and we change them, and then we try to do it. It wouldn't work. You go back to the folder where you change the permissions, and we're back to like they were before. And I'm just, I don't have a lot of hair, but I was getting ready to tear what little I had out. And then I just tried something kind of out of the box, and it worked.
May I ask, have you experienced that cutout subsequent to all of this?
No.
Another thing that happened.
It's probably like an interrupt in the computer routine where something else thinks it's got a higher priority than what you think it does, and that sometimes does it. But again, so what I was going to suggest was, if it was still doing it, is if you played it a second time separately, just put it in queue or something and listen to it. Did it have that hole cut in it? Because that would identify that it was not something in the recording, it was actually something influencing the playback of that. So anyway,
Check this one out. I put on a Dylan song. And the Hospital Guys, a Rolling Stone comes on for about 2 minutes, and then it goes into the Dylan song.
that's totally different. But
Although it did something else to me last night it's only happened to me at night. It's never happened to me during the day. I got ready to, do my last set of the night. I had it on stop after current. I got ready to talk and it popped off of stop after current and played the next song.
He did that to me, Saturday.
Oh,
It
okay.
didn't
So,
play the ball of the hour, or the tides or whatever.
That used to
I
happen.
just went into the song.
yeah, it's weird that you select stop after current and you're getting ready to talk or something and pop comes the next song.
Anyway.
But anyway, what I found out is that when Randall and I were trying to set permissions, there was another permission higher up the chain that you had to change. And once I did that, no. So, we're running off of a new F drive right now. Now, ultimately, I would like to get a 4 terabyte solid state internal drive to put into this computer. Because then you don't have the connectivity of transferring things wire. Now, an external. Internal sources usually are faster than an external source, so. But for right now, this is our F drive and everything got backed up from the old one to the new one, except for one folder. And that's when Ken went in yesterday to do his show, his folder had disappeared.
Wow.
And what's even crazier is that Butch had backed up, we have backups that we keep off site. He had backed it up, several weeks earlier. And when he went and looked at his, there was no Ken folder. And yet Ken was able to find it in the drives that we decommissioned. So we put that in for our new F drive. It's a good thing I didn't go. I was thinking of erasing what was the old F drive and maybe talking to you about using it as the recording thing, but I'm kind of glad now I left it the way it was. Right, that's my report.
Okay, mine, we have, when the razor clam, we talked at the last meeting, the tent got destroyed.
Tore up.
Right, well, we just ordered a new one, should be here by Friday. But we ordered a bigger one, it's a 10 by 20, so we have it, we can wall off a separate room to store our stuff in. And, because if you go in there 10 by 20 now, it's so crowded in that tent, there's no room for anything. Usually we try to have 2 people in there, but you go there, there's 4, 5, 6 people sometimes in that tent. I don't know where they all come from, but it gets a little crowded. So I ordered a 10 by 20. Also had to order a new spike for one of our flags. They cost almost as much as the whole unit for the flag. I was amazed how much. Okay, and then got the new transmitter back for the emergency transmitter. That it got it back from Circuit Works. Actually, I don't understand it. It gets repaired in Spokane, but the billing goes to Florida.
Yeah, that's where their headquarters.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was kind of strange.
Yeah. Gainesville.
Yeah. And as we were talking, Patrick is starting to train and get for a new DJ spot. So welcome aboard, Patrick.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Next
Bigfoot Breeze, beach vibes.
one, Bigfoot Breeze. I'd already call you Mr. Breeze.
King Breeze. Okay.
All right, that's my report.
Bunch of hot air. Thank you, Butch. Thank you, Trey. Next, we have technology report with Marty.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's good to be here and see everybody. Okay, so a couple items. The Washington State Association of Broadcasters has filed with the FCC under the FCC's what they call delete proceeding, where you have to eliminate a certain number of rules before you can implement a new rule that the government has overlaid on things. So what the Washington State Association of Broadcasters and many others around the country have put together a pleading to the commission, and what they're recommending is they're urging the FCC to abandon paperwork intensive, strict liability approach to enforcing broadcast rules. So that the idea is you would eliminate many of the unnecessary paperwork and other obligations, such as items that go into the station. And most of this is related to commercial facilities, but it trickles all the way down to non-coms such as KOSW. For instance, the public inspection file. We include these quarterly issues programs reports that Trey commented on earlier. They're looking to potentially eliminate that, or at least alleviate the timing or something about it. They feel that that needs to be addressed.
God, just as soon as I get it down.
Well, I have no idea if these are gonna be accepted and
Usually, yeah.
implemented, but probably by the end of the year, we'll know if this is gonna be something that would be actually occurring. Public inspection file issues, the rules regarding recruiting, hiring, and promoting of broadcast employees. They wanna, because there are all sorts of, not necessarily incentives, but there have been some points systems within the FCC that, depending on minority hiring and things like that, that give you a favorable position for licensing purposes. Reporting of station contracts, which oddly enough, the rules do definitely outline that certain programming content contracts need to be included. Fortunately, KOSW does not have that situation, at least at this time. And reporting of children's television program episode information. That's only for commercial television stations. Non-commercial TV does not have that requirement. But they're also urging the FCC to eliminate the biennial ownership reports, at least the filing requirement. You may still have to prepare one and have it available. And to provide greater flexibility to broadcasters meeting the new growing political file obligations that if you carry any kind of political content, the rules have kind of advanced in what information has to be presented. But so definitely on our behalf as members of the Washington Association of Broadcasters, those are some of the hot topics that they've brought forth. On a somewhat parallel but different front, AT&T has filed in the 5th District U.S. Court of Appeals, which is New Orleans. They've appealed a $57 million fine that the commission levied. And the kind of the core under this is when the commission issues a fine to a broadcast facility, or in their case, it was more for the common carrier aspect with cellular and other activities that they've been involved with. The challenge is that when the FCC issues these, it happens outside of court. This is an internal FCC to a licensee control mechanism. And the kind of the genesis of what AT&T is pleading in the 5th District Court is that it denies a defendant the right to have a jury trial. Because what normally happens is you get a fine, you figure out if you can pay the fine, or you dicker with the commission and negotiate a reduced fine or outcome, and then they stick to that. Never goes to court. Well, these guys are saying, no, AT&T is big enough that they've rolled up their sleeves and said, we want to change this approach so that we have an opportunity to defend ourselves in court rather than just having some FCC commissioners that we're dealing with. So that's a pretty hot topic item that is kind of simmering right now, and or maybe even more so. But this was just filed on April 17th. So it's very fresh data. And that's what I have for technology right now.
Great, thank you, Marty.
Yeah.
Next is the council liaison reports with Richard.
So I don't have anything to report from the council to the radio board, but my question is, does the radio board have anything they want me to take back to the council and speak on during tonight's liaison reports? Or is there anything that you want me to give back to the council?
I can think of. Maybe at the end of the meeting we might know, but not this week that I can think of that's different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say stay tuned through the
Stay
meeting,
tuned.
Richard, and if, you know, whatever strikes you as appropriate.
Well, and that's what I've been doing, But I thought in the last couple of days, as I attend these liaison meetings, it's supposed to be a two-way communication. And my role is to improve communication, both from the city council, which rarely has anything specific for any specific board, but also to relay from you guys what you want the council to be aware of. And that's why I thought of asking this question at each of the liaison boards I'm attending.
Well, I'll have a comment come or a kind of a report coming up when I get to our board member reports. But one of the things to kind of underscore to the council, I believe, is that we are actively seeking opportunities locally to get out, not necessarily early termination, but to be able to have an opportunity to get away from the existing rented site at the American Tower site where the broadcasts are currently transmitted from. Because we realize I mean, it's a serious burden.
We're always looking to lower costs.
Yeah, and
That's our number
so
one
we're
goal.
seriously looking at any aspects to reduce the overhead operation of the station. And one of them is to move to a much more attractive costing and operating location. So we're investigating a lot of that. And I think that may be something that would be appropriate to reinforce to the board that that this group is investigating across the board opportunities to reduce operating costs.
Thank you, Marty. That's exactly the kind of information I was looking for. And I'll reframe that to condense, my speaking time. But that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Sure. Great, thank you, Richard. Next is financials. You'll see on the last page, the financial report there. I was just looking at it, I see that the tools and the equipment has a $2,000 chunk in there, which is kind of early. Was that for the, but you know if that was for the canopy at all, or how was the canopy purchased? Is that Nimbin? Gotcha. I was just curious, the $2,000 in the small tools and equipment is probably something that.
Is that, oh, wait a minute, we bought a new Comrex thing for a remote from Randall over
Gotcha.
in Aberdeen.
Cool.
That's what the $2,000 was.
Cool. Outside of that, everything else looks good to me. Please take a look, everybody. Let me know if anybody has any questions on there. Budget's 144.
It is.
Yeah, that budget amount seems kind of high. 144, is that our new budget?
Well, that's a 2-year budget.
Yeah, but
Okay,
it's
but-
still,
Yeah, but you figure it's 80,000 of that is for tower rental.
still seems like, I don't know, that was the right amount we said for 2 years, 144. I don't remember having 144.
Well, it says 147.
I'll take 144, but
144 stick
Yeah.
on the revenue side.
yeah, for the city budget. Let's check that.
Third item under revenue.
Oh, but the total revenue is 47,000.
Yeah, I mean, the donations and the station fees, we're figuring out 25 grand for 2 years. That's pretty close for a few months. I'm sure it'll pop up. But yeah, I have to double check the city budget. I don't remember 144. You think we would know that number? Not my head.
Wow, with that amount of money, I think we could also.
Hey, let's go out the lunch. So yeah, I'm don't remember 144 in the budget. I thought we requested a lower amount off the top of my head, so I'll have to check that.
Maybe they put it back in.
Maybe they put that back in from last year, so let's see if we can get some answers to that. Just the 144.6, so. What would ask Nicole, that number 144.6? I mean, it's just a budget. What's that? Sarah, okay. I'll send her an email afterwards.
Well, okay,
Yes, sir.
we brought in, according to this, since the first year, 2750, right? Okay, and you take out the donations and that, take that, subtract that from the 144,6. That wasn't, that's what we brought in, that other one is what was budgeted, so if you wanna look at what our budget was, we've added to it since the time it was given to us, right?
This is saying that our budget for the next 2 years is 144,6. When we went and
No,
requested,
okay.
that's what it's saying right here.
It's a,
It's adding that to our total budget. This is a 2-year sheet that keeps track all the way up to the end of the 2 years. And it puts it in right at the beginning. I'm like, I don't think it's 144,6. I thought it was a lot lower than that. And I'm like, oh, let's find out. That's all. This is bigger, not smaller, but still.
Yeah, I thought the 144 was just the tower established.
Yeah, I have a feeling that was from a couple years ago, and they didn't change it to this year's budget. I don't think we caught it maybe last meeting, so I'll look into it and find out. Any other questions on the numbers? I'll ask Sarah about the number 44. Can I get a motion to, I guess, I don't know if approve it, it's a report. Yeah, you don't do it, you don't do the report, it's just a report, sorry, my bad. How long can I do this new guy thing? Kind of, you know, I even read one of the, you just got to facilitate conversation, that's what I gotta do. All right, on to board member report. Marty.
Okay, I'd start with a question. How is the Comrex, the new one that Randall's using? Is it working okay for
Yeah,
him?
working
And it
great.
sounds good? and-
So there's 2 Comrexes in, 2 remote?
Yeah, one for sports, one
Okay.
for Randall right now.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, good, because I know that there was some startup.
Yeah, he had some configuration issues and like me uses Linux and he was having a little.
Is he broadcasting from home? Why is he, I guess, using it?
Well, because he lives in Aberdeen and when he started with us, he would come over to Source to do it, but he got a full-time job working with social and family services. So it's just impractical for him to, gets off around 5, especially in the winter when the weather's crappy, to try to make sure to be here by 6. And we started this with COVID because we weren't having anybody in the studios, but Tom, Marilyn's husband, he could do it from home. He had the capability because he had done a lot of football games. And then Randall, who is an IT type person, he has a home studio. And so we said, we're using the older system where we go in through VLC and all this kind of stuff, but we worked that out. So he was one of the few DJs who was allowed to do his show during COVID because he could beam it in. And so since that time, he got this full-time job and, he's been with us for over 8.5 years. So, he didn't really want to kick him out. So we've allowed him to do it from home and he does a good job. And when he's on, he doesn't read the Aberdeen weather. He reads the Ocean Shores weather.
That's a great show. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure we were on.
Yeah, I was just curious what it was.
And then regarding the backup transmitter that Butch described, that North Beach Independent Media picked up the repair costs for, I'll get that installed after this meeting so that it's ready to go. Test it real quick and then.
gotta hope we don't have to send it back. Go on.
No, that's, yeah, so one of the reasons we want to get going right away too is because there's a warranty clicking on it for at least 90 days probably. So then the other thing that I wanted to bring up on as a report from for the board is, and I've been copying Patrick on my communications with a company called Vertical Bridge, and they're the ones who are the managers of the tower that's owned by CenturyLink / Quest, immediately adjacent to the IGA store. And I put together a little description of an operation and let them know that this is, frankly, a low budget operation, about as low as we can possibly make it. But one of our challenges is site rent, and describe the facilities that we would be interested in to see if there is a potential for relocating the station away from the existing tower site at American Tower whenever, whether that's something that can be negotiated prior to the termination of the existing lease in 2 years or so, whatever it is, 2.5 years. Or if it's something that we would just pick up at the end, we would just relocate in essence to this tower. So we're again, as our liaison Richard had discussed with me, we're looking for alternatives, and hopefully this would be cost effective. And one of the reasons I say that is there are no tenants on that tower site. And in the 9 years almost that I've lived here, there's never been any tenant or transmission lines going up that tower or anything.
What's that tower from originally?
Well, there are 2 microwave dish mounts on the side of that. And that tower had been part of the telephone central office for Ocean Shores. And so they had microwave dishes that were picking up signals coming from east, or well, I'd say they're both on an eastern leg, so probably something coming out of the Aberdeen Hoquiam area, possibly one of the other mountain sites. So the tower is very rugged, self-supporting, in a fair location for KOSW. There are some technical matters for the FCC filing that would be associated with it, but it's a possible opportunity. And that's what we want to explore, is find out what the cost would be for Vertical Bridge if we go in as a renter.
No, Vertical Bridge owns the tower?
No, CenturyLink Quest owns the tower
Okay.
and the real estate under it.
Okay.
Vertical Bridge is the rep that's supposed to be out selling what we all in the industry call vertical real estate to potential users. Obviously, nobody's done anything with it for many, many years. So this could be an opportunity where we would say, even a little income is better than no income. How about you guys take a good deal or make a good deal?
Is there even a possibility of a city, us buying it? Or is that just out of the question type of money? Because if no one's using it and it's in a city property area.
Well, we don't know that
Okay.
yet. I wanted to find out what they would charge us. And then I'd like to have a sidebar with CenturyLink Quest and say, look, you guys are the actual owners. You're not doing anything with it. It's no longer an integral part of your central office anymore. So how would you like to liberate that? They may say, well, we're not going to liberate the ground because that's ours and that's where our central office for this area is. But an appurtenance to that property is this tower. Maybe we would make some kind of a sale of the structure.
Or a lease, like 190.
Well, the lease, again, we're early in all of this, but the lease, they may have an agreement with Vertical Bridge that only leases through Vertical Bridge are accepted. I don't know. But it's a path, and we're going to explore it and see if we can't get the very best deal for that. The next level is someday there's going to be another tower here in Ocean Shores to replace the one at the City Works Yard. Because that one is already identified. We've gone over this for years, that it's, you know, it's a matter of when is it going to fall down, not if it's going to fall down. Someday it's going to collapse, just because of the advanced lack of maintenance that had occurred for many years with that tower. And it's not cost effective to try to retrofit that tower. So sometime there will be an eventual tower here somewhere on the shores. And I know a portion of it is related to activities where the county would like to improve the emergency communications dispatching services here. They've already identified it, it's on their list, but given the massive question mark over any kind of governmental spending right now, my contacts for it through our fire chief have pretty well dried up for the moment. And I think everybody's just sitting back to see what's going to happen budget-wise on a federal basis, because I suspect they're waiting for federal monies to come to the state monies coming to the county monies going to the emergency services and communications, and then that going out to the community. So I think that is going to be a longer road. And I recommend that the board have a voice, and certainly the fire chief has been in communication with me in the past about this, up to about 2 months ago. Because we do, as a subset of the city operations, have a vested interest in having a tower site that is completely under the control of the city. So I think that's the long game. Just like the initial game to get the station's power increased and make it a regular, full, non-commercial station, we had to move up to where we are now. We can now relocate back to the city proper, if that's what the city feels is appropriate. And then once we're back here in the city, as far as for coverage goes, certainly some of the distant coverage that we're enjoying now will change. But I just want to be sure that we're constantly showing some level of progress in cost controls throughout the operation and have effective coverage, at the bare minimum, solid coverage over the city of Ocean Shores. If we have any,
And the beach. I mean,
yeah, well, but yeah, of course. And then if we have any, what I've always classified as bonus coverage, then so much the better. But the real interest is in bringing a solid signal and maintaining it for the long haul for the city. And so that's what all of this is about. And we're making progress with it. So that's it.
so you got a letter there? I guess what's the latest progress? What's the?
Well, I haven't had any feedback yet. That just went out, was it yesterday?
Gotcha. Okay.
So.
Yeah.
How much reduction in power will we have to take?
A lot of depends ons. We all remember, just dial the clock back a year and a half, our signal was only 89 watts of effective radiated power. We're up over
89 watts.
89 watts,
100 watts.
because 100 watts is the limit, but because of where the tower is situated, the way you calculate things for the FCC, we had to throttle the power back a little bit.
Watts, like in a light bulb.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, right, 500 watt bulb lights up the whole room.
Sure.
150 watts still lights up the
Yeah.
whole room, but not to the brilliance. And the shadows are deeper and all of that. So, in this case, we would most likely, and this is just kind of off the cuff calculation on my part, at least 1,000 watts. Probably somewhere right in that way neighborhood. So a 10-fold power increase.
Yeah, we're only at 1,200 now, right?
Well, yes, at our new site is 1,200. We would probably be able to maintain something close to that, even though we don't have that elevation, because that's kind of that offsetting situation.
We give a strong signal in town, a very
Yeah,
strong
that's
signal.
always the goal. Yeah, always the goal. So we'll see what they come back with.
Great.
And we'll keep you posted. That's it for my operation.
Thank you, Brian. Daryl.
I don't have anything this month.
No problem. Rosanna,
None.
Marilyn,
I think
myself, I have nothing to add.
Burned up
Yeah,
all the
I did
time,
it all.
kept us on schedule here.
So old business, it says battery backup for tower on there. Just, I need to, clarify, just like you said, just tower itself, our new tower, we'll make sure to have on the agenda every meeting, so. It says battery backup for tower, we'll sort of talk about it a little bit, but regardless, it's gonna say tower. Like next week, we'll make sure it says that on there, and we'll.
Also at the new tower, we got a new computer, we monitor, we got a console board to put up there. And I got a headphone with a mic on it, so we can actually broadcast from the tower if ever needed to be.
Nice. Okay,
Well, it's not in place.
It's not installed yet.
Yeah, but we have the equipment.
but battery backup, that's on the agenda now. Still no battery backup. We were gonna, again, have that towards the end of last year, and then it sounds like the money got pulled to, general fund. We're not quite, didn't get the really, I think the mayor was here 2 meetings ago, 2 months ago, and so you look into it, and then I don't think we followed up either. So, as of right now, we don't know if the money for, it sounds like more than likely the money just went back in the general fund. It was gonna be like 7,000 or 8,000, if I remember, the cost for about a 2-hour battery backup, if I remember, 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah, I think we just, in round numbers.
Yeah.
I think the budget held about $10,000.
Yeah, it was the utilities alone, we had a lot in there.
Right,
Yeah.
and then, but for the battery backup for about 4 hours was gonna be between 6,000 and 8,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what do we do? Do we still ask? Do we just move forward and get something with the current budget now? I guess I'm asking for thoughts and what's I think the battery backup should be our number one, besides getting to a new tower in a year, a couple years, whatever. Really, our number one thing would be, power goes out, we don't want to lose our signal, which we do now. So I guess I'm asking for thoughts and do we pursue to get is there a chance we get the money back from the general fund, or that's long gone? Is that, I guess I'm asking that.
It's gone.
It's
It
gone.
sounds like it's.
Okay, it sounds like it's gone. So we either, and then another thing we have to do is verify the budget. I'm really looking at this, looking at like last year's number, 144.6. I don't think that's correct. But if it is some reason, I don't see why we would have a higher budget than what we requested. Do we go ahead and start talking about taking out this budget? So maybe we should get some new numbers for battery backup. Like a new price. What are your thoughts?
Well, having the backup here in town kind of,
Good enough?
I don't know, I'll use the term, but I'll say negates the
Sure.
demand of a quick solution.
Because you have the generator there, right?
The city's
Yeah.
generator, as long as it runs
Okay.
properly. And, we did have that one incident where the generator didn't come on. But that would have affected the studio operation, or it did affect the studio operation also. So even if we had battery backup up there, the station would still be on the air. And in fact, at the time that the generator didn't work here, the transmitter did stay on because that part of the power grid was still active. So if we had a battery backup on top of that, we're just sitting there running without any programming content.
Gotcha.
The only time it would be significant is if all of the power is out and they can't get the generator started down here. By now, that's like 5 hours after the fact. Chances are that the Grace Harbor PUD would probably be back in 5 hours. That's a pretty long haul for them. Unless it's, again, if some catastrophic situation. As much as I cringe when I say it, I think we should keep the battery backup concept intact for a future site.
Okay.
And as long as we have this backup though,
Okay.
and it does serve the city reasonably well, and if we can tweak it to improve that, so much the better.
Because we have the backup transmitter. now.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's complementary to the studio
So
having.
what needs to occur then, I guess, just to get the transmitter rehooked up and up on the tower, I guess what?
Oh, the one here?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, we already have it. It's just, higher power one compared to the one that we've been using.
The
for
one we got
backup.
now is 20 years old. and
Sure.
It's only 150 watt transmitter to begin with.
Yeah.
The one that we're replacing is a 350 watt transmitter.
Yeah.
And if we get the move down like to the IGA site, I wouldn't spend $8,000 in battery backup.
Yeah.
You could spend a couple thousand or 1,000 and get a nice generator and have a backup that give for an hour or 2 hours, gives us time to go and start the generator, because we can drive to it,
Yeah.
where the winds-
Well, I caution that and saying you want to budget more than just a couple $1,000s, because you want it to be an automatic starting generator.
Yeah, okay.
You want stuff like that. You don't want to have human intervention just to stay on the air. So, I'd still budget a minimum of 5 or 6. That's me. I don't know.
But that's a lot more reliable than a 4-hour battery backup,
Right.
and it would be more permanent for us.
In terrain that's almost impossible to get.
Yeah, well, in a windstorm, you don't want to go up there.
Right.
I tried to tell Marty, I said, Marty, don't go up there when the wind's blowing. You get up there, if you've ever been up there, that logging road goes right to the woods, all the way up there, it's solid trees all the way up to the tower. And you get up, you might get up there, but you may not be able to get back down.
Yeah, you gotta bring a chain.
If we, get away from the idea of putting a battery backup on an existing tower and just use the generator stuff here, I'm just getting to is anything need to happen for any of this to occur? Like, because I thought we just got the transmitter. but
No,
we're-
we can just move the battery back up to a idle future project.
Sounds good. I'll change that too for old business. I'll just put new tower, new tower discussion. Okay.
Great.
So any other comments on battery backup? We'll just kind of, all right. Moving on, religious service pay to play, talking about having church sermons broadcasted. Since our last meeting, we talked about getting the word out, if I remember. Hey, let's start, get the public, get some feedback before we really do this. We're talking about maybe, that's where the word PSA came up, maybe doing the PSAs or something, announcement or something. I guess it wouldn't be a public.
I do have
PSA,
an
it's an
update.
announcement. What's that?
You have an update for that?
Please.
I talked to Lon, one of our marketing guys, and he's very excited about going and talking to churches, just kind of feel them out, see what they would do, but he's been sick, so he hasn't had a chance to get out there, but it's on his radar.
Wait a second, then I have an update to your update.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Is he not sick now?
Superseded.
No, he's still sick. Actually, we were contacted by, what is it, the Episcopal Church, Galileans. And I have been communicating
That's a
with them
loop,
by
right?
email, and they're buying underwriting. So,
Yeah, but we're talking about the services.
right, but they are actually, because we were running underwriting from Faith Community Church, I think they heard that, they thought, well, by gummit, if they're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. So maybe now all churches in town will, but then they'll hear Faith Community Church
gonna be-
and Galilean, and then maybe,
Competing.
yeah, then they'll go, hey, we're losing out on prisoners, we
Yeah.
need to be doing it, so.
Question.
Oh, Lutheran.
So on the PSA thing, what to call this stuff? Isn't that more like a paid block of time? Is that what you're looking at doing? So
Well, yeah,
instead of-
I was just saying, when I said PSA, I just meant to get the word out, public service, and maybe I shouldn't say PSA.
Right,
just-
because you put out PSA, we changed that.
Yeah.
So instead of using the word PSAs, isn't this a paid, a block of time that we're trying to sell? Trying to sell a block. of time.
I'm separate. I was just saying, let's get the public feedback first, not about doing a block of time. That's what I was saying, PSA. We're gonna say, hey, we're thinking about doing, maybe,
What I've asked Lon to do is talk to the churches,
Yeah.
and say, we have an hour opening on Sunday morning. That we would like to see if you're interested in putting on
Filling it
a
up.
sermon. It's not a service, because a service, you'd have to do almost live on a service, but they could pre-record a sermon. Okay, and send us an hour's sermon or gospel, whatever or maybe it could be a service they want to redo it. They have an hour block of time to do that in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just came up with a price kind of like $250 for that 1 hour. See if they were interested. So if we did that, that could be a couple thousand or $1,000 a month.
If you're getting a lot of interest, how about 2 block, half-hour blocks at $250?
Maybe.
Could do that. Also, we could do two 1 hours if we want to. That early in the, because we have, it's open all morning long up until 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings.
How many hours is that?
From 7
7
to
to
10.
10.
7 to 10, so just-
But what would happen to the shadow?
Only the shadow knows.
Only the shadow knows.
The shadows in that one. And I was just saying to get the work, to get feedback from the public before we made a decision to move this forward. That's when I was saying PSA, just to
Yeah, but
feedback.
not PSA, but it's really a paid block of time.
Yeah, it is paid block of time, yeah, and PSA is probably not to get the feedback, it's probably just to get feedback. I mean, I'm using PSA like, let's make an announcement, hey, KSW is thinking about, you know, and this would actually be a 10 or 15-second thing we would play. If KSW is thinking about having, you know, religious sermons on Sunday, we'd like to have.
That would be a PSA.
That's what I was talking about. We like your feedback, go here for your feedback, and then we also do a Survey Monkey or something. I just want to make sure we reach for public feedback before we move forward on any of this. That's my concern. And then when I was saying PSA, I was using that
Yeah,
as far as the feedback.
I don't think you should use PSA.
Thank you.
Could I interject?
Yes, please.
That's great that we can get consumer feedback. The controlling feedback that we need to get is from the city council. Are they gonna endorse this? Or are they gonna say, we have a clear delineation that we're adhering to, regardless of the basis for it, but that the classic separation of church and state kind of a concept.
We do have
Since
one
this is a
ally.
city owned.
We do have an ally. Frank is the one that really wanted. to
Oh,
get this
well,
going.
that's
the
great.
man.
Yeah.
That's
but-
great. That's fantastic. But
It's
he's not the
council.
council.
Right.
The council, each individual member of the council gets a 12.5% vote in things like this. And presuming that it's something that they would even be willing to vote on. Should we put our toes in that water prior to
Any
reaching out? to
public
the-
water.
Well, we are right now.
Yeah.
Asking Richard.
What do you think, Richard? Maybe bring this up at the city council about us thinking about the possibility of having religious sermons. Hey,
I think that the radio board should put together a presentation to council and voice this idea and get the council's approval, the city's approval, before you go forward with selling time to the churches. Because there is, in my mind, a very fraught potential about what we just discussed.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's where I was thinking, that it's not just moving forward, getting feedback. I mean, that's really what we're looking for, is feedback from the public first. So we can put something together to,
We're not selling anything right now. We're just
No.
an exploratory, seeing.
well, that's the other thing too. The whole goal is just to bring in extra income.
Right.
Our next thing on the agenda is to talk about income and such. I mean, there's been thoughts with North Beach and Media paying for more things. You know, so, well, that's the case, then maybe we don't need to do this. I mean, that's something that we have to consider.
You can always use the.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, but I think getting back to religious pay for play. So I hear what you're saying, Richard. We should maybe put something together to, hey, we're coming up with this idea that we could formally present to city council or something like that. I'm all for that. At least,
The only thing, well,
Well,
the only
I
thing,
intend tonight to mention this, and just give the council a heads up that the radio board is considering coming to council, to propose, churches in a pay to play scenario. And the
I would,
issue
rather
is
than propose, I would say, looking for feedback.
looking for
Yeah,
feedback.
we're really just at the feedback part of it. Yeah. Well, go ahead,
I
Marilyn.
know, like religion is, in this town is highly, it's like politics. And people are so split. If we started playing somebody's church and it wasn't theirs,
Yeah.
you could end up something like happened at the city council last time.
Yeah,
And we don't want the radio.
I'm on the same page with you.
We
Yeah.
are looking at any church that is registered the IRS will be contacted and have an opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Just want to
we're not
stress
gonna leave
over and
anybody
over.
out. They all have an opportunity
Why do they have to register with the IRS?
because it makes them a legitimate church, right?
And that
That
defines
defines,
its feedback.
that legally defines a church.
I mean, if we start hearing, oh, the KSW is going to be, no, we're just looking for feedback. And I'm gonna really get upset. And of course, there's gonna be some people doing that. And I hope not, but we really need to stress, we're just looking for public feedback. You know, because of that whole reason. So,
Well,
go ahead, Richard.
so my thought is this is really a city lawyer question. And maybe even before you present to the city council, that you put together a small package, present to the mayor and Scott Anderson to ask Kendra, is there a violation of separation of church and state? If the city-owned radio station is broadcasting religious services. And if Kendra says there's not a legal issue, then the next step in my mind would be, is there a city council issue? And then is there a public issue? And that's where the public survey would come into play. So before I even mention this, I would suggest approaching Frank and Scott Anderson and checking with Kendra if there is a separation issue before you even move forward at all. Why invest energy into this endeavor? I fully understand the radio board's desire to increase income. That's one of the city council stipulations is that you guys strive to become self-sufficient. But we've got to make sure that we're legal before we go down a path.
Gotcha, legal counsel, public.
I think Richard really hit the right sequence of
Yeah.
approvals on
I don't
that.
see there being an issue.
Still, it doesn't
School
hurt.
district, we rented our schools out to church services, almost all our
Yeah, but if
schools.
we have a city lawyer and it doesn't. You know,
No,
they're not gonna-
I gotta get it past the city.
Sure, sure,
I
sure.
don't see there's gonna be an issue.
No, I don't either, but still we'll do the right thing. Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Richard.
Okay,
All right, so we'll have to, I guess, I like to think of the next step. I just say, oh, okay, sounds good. All right, what are we doing about it? How is this rubber gonna hit the road? What's the next step? So,
Well,
go ahead.
could I suggest that somebody either send an email to Frank and Scott, or at least have a chat with them to find out if it's okay to take this to the city attorney, because that's been the hierarchy that I've followed in
Sure.
the past.
Frank said he already did, and they said there was no problem.
I would rather get an email and write it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just CYA.
Okay.
And,
Does
and
anybody want,
then take that reaction and share it and then go forward.
does anybody on the board want to volunteer to do that email?
That should come from the chair.
Yeah, I think.
All right,
that's
no problem. I'll get it.
chairperson's type.
I was going to, but I thought I'd ask first. I didn't wanna.
Yeah, we didn't wanna miss.
I also gotta ask about the budgeting too, so, all right, you got it.
That's why you get the big bucks.
I was new, the new guy. They're like, yeah, stick him in the chair. All right, so, okay, we'll do that. I guess next steps for that, we'll check with the city if we can do legal, and then the council and public. We'll start with legal. And I'll get an email out and make sure CC. Great, anybody, any other comments on that? I think we're good. All right, so now moving on to KSW NIMBIB, agency memorandum in understanding, again, just what I was just saying, there's some thought that maybe, North Beach Independent Media maybe taking over more of the cost, which would be great, because we have this budget here, and his budget has different categories and of course, different things for, we got the lease as the main thing or whatever. And as you know, we went in lower than we did before. We basically audited the budget for 2 years and it was high because we thought there's gonna be extra costs for the tower and things like that. And so we went in basically what we spent with a little wiggle room above it. And with understanding that, hey, because we looked at how much North Beach Independent Media was bringing in with the underwriting, which is great. We're making money on the spots. People are paying for it. You're hearing new stuff all the time. It's the way it works,
So would you like to know how much we brought in and how much we spent on KOSW?
Not yet, just about. So, what the thought is, there was a sheet, I've got the one sheet for the spots just to try to get, to see, hey, on this day, a typical day, there's so many spots that were there and what was for 25 grand that comes in for 2 years, what does that equate to for all those spots? And that, if you took that as an average, it was like 28 cents, which is great. It's nice and low. There's a lot of wiggle room. So, really, it's just, if we can cut off some categories and North Beach Independent Media takes a lot of those that's less that we have to worry about, you know, but the only thing I wanna make sure, perfect, is that we're legitimate or legal on our end, you know, since, I guess I'm asking, that's Marty a question here. Since we are underwriting, I don't know if you know the answer to this, and what do we officially have to keep track as a station? As far as underwriting, do we have to keep a log? You know, it's a city station, and then at the city's time, it's a resource that's playing, so when we hear these spots playing. You know, what do we have to keep, I guess, on our end to be legitimate? I mean, is there like, do we have to keep a track of every log and everything, if that spots are being played, the city has to, or can that be separated or not? I mean, it's,
Well, one thing to be careful of is not using the term spots.
okay,
They're mentions.
mentions,
Um,
they're mentioned,
Spot is synonymous with.
The
an ad.
commercial ad.
Sure.
Yeah.
You do that.
We don't use it.
yeah,
So they're underwriting mentions, or however you want to use that term.
Acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement.
okay, mentions, acknowledgements.
Yeah. Oddly enough, under the current model that we've been following, there aren't any bookkeeping requirements.
Nice,
Not that I'm aware of at all. We do keep track on the log that the playlist log that says we did a mention at the top of the hour, at the
Yeah.
bottom of the hour,
Yeah, I was
whatever,
gonna say, we don't specifically
identify the individuals.
Well, I mean, we don't specifically have a log system or reporting system just for underwriting. We have it for everything we do. So like when I go and do these reports that I'm working on, I take out all that stuff because Sound Exchange doesn't care about all that stuff. They just care about the music, but I could very easily grab out all the underwriting stuff if we needed a report of that matter.
Right, and the only time I can think of that we would need a report like that would be if someone contested saying, I've been listening religiously, so to speak, and my mention of my donation only comes up once every 10 hours, and yet these guys comes
Gotcha.
up every 3 hours. And then you'd have to go back and say, no, it's because you were in the bathroom every time.
Sure, sure.
You made it a
but as far as us, the FCC and all that, we don't really have to have like logs and all that stuff, so,
Nope.
gotcha.
Not anymore.
Thank goodness.
That is really good, so.
Got a kick out of it. I saw Joe at Too Cool. Says, I never hear my spot. It says, it's because you don't listen to the radio. And you need to have some other station in the store there, right? I'm going, no wonder you don't hear your spots.
So, I mean, it's, that's good to hear, because then we don't have to, it's just less paperwork and overhead and everything else. And it's just, it's
It's addressable if it needs, if there's.
yeah,
any-
I mean, it just comes down to us hitting our budget or not, you know, I mean, the budget as we did it, we wanted the assumption that the same amount, 25 grand will come into, over 2 years of donations from the mentions, not spots, acknowledgements, underwriting. And so my only thing was, when I was putting down memorandum of understanding and such, it was just to get something a little more clarified, hey, if you want to take, if NIMBY wants to, because this is great, you have her sheet, whatever. Probably you can make more, honestly, when you start looking at some of the stuff on there, like some of these other cities and stuff and what they're charging. I was looking at Duval and some of their rate sheets and stuff. And so I know there's good money in there, which is great. You could probably take over the whole budget.
Yeah, we had talked off and on the Addy Caddy.
Yeah.
And they were saying, last time I talked to them, that what we charge for a month or a year is what the Aberdeen stations charge for a month.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, which is good. I mean, it's
Well,
all,
they charge $25 a spot. What the Aberdeen stations charge.
yeah,
So if you're running 4 times a day, it's $100 a day you're running.
yeah.
But I'd like to table this MOU right now, is NIMBIM's working with the city right now, trying to figure out something we can do.
Well, yeah, that's it's all, I mean, we're all in the same outcome together, you know, we want the station to be self-sufficient. We want the people that are selling time and the people that are out there to, hey, if you can, you know, make some money on that, on this, for doing that, you know, because you're on a fixed income, go for it. You know, I kept saying it over and over. I just look at NIMBM as like a nonprofit advertising.
I'd really like to wait till we hear, are ready to give a proposal to the city, and then, once there's a decision on that, then we can come back to the board and tell you exactly what we're doing.
Gotcha.
'Cause I can't tell you right now.
But I would like to share some general information. So for about the last year or so, we have run upwards of 50 underwriting spots.
Thanks.
Now, am I giving you the most recent one? I think.
I keep hearing new stuff on all the time. It's
I
awesome.
see
Up the
lag
beach.
behind.
Yeah.
During, usually the summer months is we have the most, because a lot of
Yeah.
people buy a 6-month package so they can cover the entirety of the tourist season. So right now, we've got 24 that are lapsed. Although one, when he gets to be feeling better, we'll be working on some of those. We've got 26 current.
Accounts,
Huh?
26 names or accounts, kind of like current.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you know, and we've got them in, one thing that has changed is that it used to be just Ocean Shores businesses, but we've got businesses from Aberdeen, Westport. We've got one from Elma, although they're getting ready.
Yeah, the pizza one.
Yeah,
I had a buddy actually looking to buy that place.
yeah, so, we have that, but I was gonna tell you, in, 2024, we raised $12,160.75 in through underwriting for the station. And the station got back from that, $8,545.85 in purchases for equipment, you know, swag, you know, things break, have to be replaced or fixed. Plus, we also gave a $2,000 check just directly to Sarah to be credited to our account. So far this year, we've done $3,653.75. I don't know why we keep going with 75 cents, but we do. And we've spent $2,517.37 on things for the station. And actually, one thing we're doing differently with the foundation, we've actually set up a dedicated account now that's North Beach Independent Media KOSW Fund. So every time money comes in that is earmarked for the station exclusively, now goes into the fund.
It separates the two things. So not in the same account.
So that way, if anybody ever wanted to know how much money was in the KOSW side, just pop me an email, give me a phone call, go up online, I'll tell you what it is to the second. But one of the reasons you like to, or we decided to separate the funds is that you don't want to strive to more and more take over things. You know, it's difficult at our foundation board meetings to go, we've got X amount of money, but this amount of money is KOSW's, and then people are constantly getting confused. But what's our net, what's our gross? So now it's a much easier to say, you know, just for the organization, you got this much money, KOSW is this much money. But I agree that we need to come up with an agreement between the foundation and the city. Because that's the way you do things like that.
Sure.
That's how you do public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
And that's what this really is, be a public-private partnership.
Yeah.
You had something in there about using the logo.
What's that?
Minutes, you don't even think about using the logo?
Yeah, as part of the MOU that I was thinking about would be getting back to the flat rate, because, 28 cents was cheap, dirt cheap. Hey, that 28 cents showed that it just, at least on that day, and maybe got more or less, hopefully it was a winter month on that day. But 28 cents, per underwrite or mention equates to $25,000, if every mention, it equates $25,000. So it's like, hey, that's pretty low. You know what? If we went to 50 cents, that's 50 grand. If we went to $1, that's our whole budget. And if you sold it for a minimum 2, 3, that's quite a bit of margin in there for North Beach Independent Media. So
It's the businesses in town.
I don't know, that's just a thought. That was a
Well, I
thought.
can say that is the problem, this year, we raised rates.
You
And,
should even more. I mean.
oh, I know, but
yeah.
our salesperson
Yeah,
who has the relationship with the
Yeah.
businesses says, man, this is gonna ice out about a third of them because they're not gonna be able to do this. Cause last year, even though I thought last summer, there were people in town constantly. According to Lon and talking to the businesses, they did not have the best of years. And so a lot of them we've already had 2 of our regulars to say,
yeah.
can't afford to do it this year. So this is it's, in business, it's always the thing. It's, you've got to balance 2 things, but particularly for us, I hear what you're saying about raising them a lot more, but we really can't compete with the Aberdeen stations, because if we were to do an Arbitron thing, I'm sure they have this much listeners and we have this.
We don't even
much.
show up in those, do we? Those.
No.
Yeah, those kind of-
But maybe in a year or 2, we would, but I'm sure it would always be much smaller in comparison to them.
Sure.
And so, as we have done this, I've been, doing this now for 7, 8 years. It's always the balance of, we want to raise some, needed capital, but you need to do it to where we have lots of mom and pop shops here. And even in good years, they have basically 8 to 10 weeks where they make all their money. And then they have to, skate the rest of the year. And, I look at KOSW as a community station. And because I guess the responsibility I feel to the community, we don't want to get the prices to where people are having to say, man, can we afford that? I don't know if we can afford that. Because part of what we're trying to do is, we're trying to make money, but we're also trying to promote the people who work here. And so to me, I would always want to balance on the side of maybe a little less as opposed to a little more.
We've seen a hell of an increase since we went full power.
Yeah, if we're able to get the tower off that lease, $3,000 a month, and I don't know what we go down to, but that's just less we're gonna need, and it's just, if anything, we're still, hopefully go less.
So we're trying to work a deal so we don't have to ask the city, reduce the budget we're asking the city for. Each independent media can take on, the less the city has to put in there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's the whole idea though.
I have a question. You mentioned something about logos. Are you talking about the logo for KOSW or the city logo?
KSW, that was gonna be part of the MOU, was like, I was thinking,
I didn't know which one you're talking.
oh, it's just the understanding between the two, be like, hey, what I was thinking of a first draft would be every spot, you turn in monthly, you're basically, hey, we sold the resource, you sold the city's time as these acknowledgements. Here they are, here's whatever thousands that were sold times 28 cents, so here's your check. Keep the rest, doesn't matter, And then that 28 cents, hopefully would be equal to 25 grand for the next 2 years. As well as, hey, if anybody ever contacts, we just go back to North Beach Encyclopedia. We basically say North Beach Encyclopedia and there's all acknowledgements and mentions. If you want to advertise, you can actually go to them. And if you want a sweatshirt, they handle all the merchandise too, give them exclusive rights. That's what I was mentioning, thinking about the MOU to say. But now finding out that we actually don't have to have audit of every single I thought we had to, I really thought we had to keep a log of everything the city had to keep, so I was thinking, well, we gotta be doing this anyway, right? Well, guess we don't really have to keep a log. So, all right, well, let's get something, because it is a city's resource, you're out there selling it, making money on it, so that's fine, let's just. And if you're taking care of some station, that's great, then let's eliminate this budget item, let's talk about it, let's do it.
So we agree.
I'm all for it.
Okay, we agree with you and we're actually working on that.
Yeah. Perfect, let's just table it, let's see what you come up with, let's see, and then go from there. So. That was a good conversation. And, all right, sounds good. All right, back to new business. I don't think we really have any new business, that we. I think, and this kind of was in a way, a little business, but.
It's not on the agenda.
No, it looks like it's not.
You don't-
Yeah, we didn't change it, that's right. Discussion, public communication, back to that. Does anybody, we'll start on the, Gina, do you have anything to say? Going once, going twice? Guess not. Anybody in the room? All right,
I do,
future-
I do have a couple of comments, please.
please.
So there's two comments that I have about different things that you've discussed today. And I'm not trying to be a snot. That's not it. The broadcast of the church services for a fee. I'm surprised that this hasn't been brought to the attention of the administration, the city administration, because this has been talked about and talked about prior to COVID. And in fact, there was an opportunity, there's been several church services that have been broadcast. And so if there was a conflict, that should have been addressed long before this. So I'm glad that you're talking about it now and hopefully expedite it, because it's an issue and it should have been taken care of. Whether I believe in God or not, that's not the case. It's the case of it's a city-owned entity. So that's my first comment. The second comment is that, Marty, bless your heart, I'm glad that you're looking for alternatives for the antenna. But I will tell you, prior to COVID and since COVID, there's been several of us who have been affected by poor performance from the CenturyLink antennas. And they were giving credits and abruptly stopped because of non-service. And their explanation was that they were getting out of the antenna business because they were looking at the technology of satellite. And so they were not going to support antennas. So anything that you would do, the maintenance of that antenna is paramount in my mind. So just wanted to share that with you, because we've not gotten any credits. We've not gotten any reimbursements of service. They basically, we were told tough bananas. So again, I hope that you have better luck than I have had, or some of my friends. And the other thing with the antenna, is that going to affect and put you back in the same situation that you had before, where you could not service the south end of town? Because that's part of the problem with CenturyLink, that anybody beyond Razor Clam to the south was having difficulty. They could not call out. They couldn't use their phones in the house. They couldn't, and it's been a oncurring event. Thank you for the time and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Gina.
Thanks, Gina. I mean, we're not precluded, we're not like city council, so we can interact. Gina, the CenturyLink function, and I guess that was through one of their cellular services that you're describing. And I understand and appreciate that they're looking at the fairly close eventuality of having satellite service or other mechanisms that will make their activities in the cellular world more ubiquitous throughout the community. It's really a completely different service from the broadcast side. And we don't have, I'm at a lack of understanding about rebates and some things like that, because broadcast, unfortunately, we don't get any underwriting from the cellular businesses or the tower that we rent from. And so our references to the CenturyLink tower here in the city, which does not have any cellular or anything on it, that would just be a agreement or some form of use agreement to use their tower. But we would certainly, all of my design criteria is to put the appropriate, at least the minimum FCC defined signal over all of Ocean Shores, all the way down at the jetty area also. So we would maintain that. The area that and it would actually improve the signal in Ocean Shores proper, just due to proximity to the tower site.
We're at a higher level now.
Yeah, like I said, about in rough numbers, there'd be at least 10 times the power level of what we previously had when we were a low power station and fixed output level that we could not negotiate to a higher level because the FCC definition limits the power to less than 100 watts for low power stations. So I don't see a situation developing where we would negatively, every step we want to take is to improve the city coverage here in Ocean Shores, not lose anything that we've picked up by the location where we are now for coverage of the city, since it does technically cover all of the city. This would enhance it by bringing the transmitting location back into within the city limits. It just inherently will be better. The challenge is that the outer lying areas where we have the bonus coverage would be subject to some potential degradations depending on the terrain primarily, making it more difficult to pick up. But I hope that helps kind of
Well,
settle
Marty,
your question.
it's better to be forewarned. Marty, it's better to be forewarned and forearmed before you go into battle. And so I'd much rather have, that that's what we were dealing with. And when they said they were getting out of the antenna business, it occurred to me, and what during the discussion was that they were putting them up for sale. That's one of the reasons they weren't going to maintain them anymore.
That may be the case. We'll find out when we get a communication back from the Vertical Bridge people that represent CenturyLink.
Well, I'll be waiting for you to share it. Thanks.
We will. Thank you. And thanks again, Gina.
Any other public comments?
And I have a question here. Hi, Gina. As far as the church comment, it has been discussed way before COVID, but I do not remember us ever running any church. No, we didn't, Gina. So
I've been there 9 years. and-
Yeah. Always discussed.
I've been here
And-
11 and a half years and
Yeah.
never run a church.
No.
Well,
No church.
actually, and it's because the prior city attorney said,
Right.
Well, we're gonna find out. We're definitely gonna get feedback first. We're gonna check with legal, then council, then public.
Thanks, Gina.
Thanks, Gina. All right. No one else has any public comment? We're good? All right, that's it. We're up to future meeting date, Tuesday, May 27th, right back here. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Yes,
I
sir.
have one question.
Yes, sir.
Before adjournment. June is typically the month where certain board members lapse or their term of service ends. I was gonna say, does anybody know who that applies to this year?
Marty and Renee.
Us.
Let's do.
So that means that the next meeting would be their last meeting if they don't re-up. Just so.
Oh, it's the end of June, right?
They still would be because
It's
it's
the
June
30th.
30th.
Oh, June third.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they would have the June meeting as well
But they'd still have to have, you'd still have to put an application in, right?
before then.
And I mean, it just isn't an automatic rollover. If someone else wanted to run, they could run against them, right?
Oh,
Yes.
they still have to be appointed by the mayor.
But
And
I
mo-
just thought that the board should be thinking about that.
Think about it.
That's
Right.
lobbying.
Motion adjourned?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.